Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om.
Hey everyone, so happy you can join us for the Love Everyone podcast
with your hosts Govind Das and Rama Chandra Das.
A conversation of love, devotion, and walking the path of Bhakti Yoga.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. The Love Everyone podcast, episode 9. I'm Govind Das.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rama Chandra Das. It's such a pleasure to be back together again. And the question that everybody is wanting to know the answer to, Govind Das, is where are you now?
I am here now. That's right.
Oh, wow. You are so enlightened. No, really. Where's your physical body? What city, space, place are you in?
I am in Amsterdam right now, which is sometimes called Holland, right? And sometimes called the Netherlands as well, too. And I'm actually sitting in a very, very old two friends named Gustav and Patrick, who I met in Vrindavan in 1999, my first time in India. And we were all staying at Maharaji's temple together in Vrindavan. And they own a really cool yoga studio for many, many years, I think since 2005. They have 3 studios here in Amsterdam called Svaha Yoga. And it just, wow, what a great vibe in the studio. It's like a little urban ashram, and very similar to Bhakti Yoga Shala when we had the physical space as well too. So very special. If you ever find yourself in Amsterdam, definitely stop by Svaha Yoga.
Svaha Yoga. Will you be doing an event at Svaha?
Yep, tomorrow night we have kirtan here.
Nice.
And then Sunday morning, we are doing a yoga class, Bhakti Vinyasa yoga class with live kirtan, with live mantra music. So should be a great weekend here. Just arrived from Mallorca last night. And it's crazy because what is it, 10:48 p.m. right now?
Mm.
And it's still light outside. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty
Although
crazy.
you get that too in Seattle.
We get that too in Seattle. I think it's even a little further north than us here in Seattle, but yeah, we have been, you know, uh, still light at 10 o'clock. Easily, sky's got light in it. Can walk around. I can walk the dog at 10 p.m. and no problems. Yeah. So the downside of that is the sun comes up about 4:15 or something, and that's challenging. Getting any sleep.
Oh, I thought you woke up at 4 to do your sadhana.
5. I get up at 5.
Mahamurti.
Oh,
Mahamurta, right? Isn't that what it's called?
yeah. No, I've never been at 4 a.m. Yeah, aren't we supposed to be doing our practice from 4 to 6?
I think so.
Yeah, but um, we're sloppy bhaktas, as they say. So, no, my rising time is around 6:30. How about you on a normal day?
Well, this trip has been crazy because we've been going to bed so late here after kirtans, the getting food. It doesn't get, dark until 10 o'clock at night. Been going to bed at 1 a.m., getting up at 9 or 10 every day,
Wow.
which is, I haven't done this in ages. My body could never even sleep past 7 o'clock. But we've just all fallen into this groove, and it's actually kind of nice.
What about the afternoon siestas?
And we've just been so busy enjoying life and running around and being on beaches and
Oh my.
being in new countries that it's been hard to have any kind of siestas. But yeah, it's been just honestly like the best days of my life. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
really grateful. and headed to India on Sunday, which is really exciting, which
Yeah.
is kind of really coming up. I realized just today I didn't have my visa printed out, so I had to rush to a copy center and get a printout of that. So,
You just doing the tourist visa?
yeah, I just got one of those 5-year e-visas.
A 5-year e-visa.
5-year e-visa. How about you?
Is that a new thing? Well, I'm still running a sticker visa, but I think it expires this year.
Yeah, go for that 5-year e-visa. It's really simple and inexpensive and pretty
What does
cool.
that mean? So then just anytime you go in that 5 years, you just
Yeah,
print up the thing?
just show them your printout when you walk in.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's nice. So you can get 5 years, but you don't have to send in your passport, which always makes me a little
Awesome. Exactly.
a little stressed out, actually.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
The first time I did, I thought I was going crazy. I wanted to go to India so bad, that first time. And I was like, I literally lost my mind. Like I redid the photos like 3 times because they were like a half a millimeter off or something. I mean,
Oh,
I can't even tell you. I lost sleep thinking that, that I hadn't done the application right. Or such a relief though when I finally got it back in the mail. It was all printed up and ready to go. But
mm. Hey,
it's
I wanted to just say something else, man. I wanted to congratulate you on the release of your new song, Hari Om. It's a beautiful track, brother. Really, really lovely. Is that the one that Garish produced?
Yeah, well, he produced the whole album. So this is just one of those songs. So yeah, it was produced by Girish. That's he's playing tabla on that one, I believe. And
Keyboard, maybe? Is he playing keys?
who?
Is there a keyboard player
There
on?
is. There's an amazing keyboard player named John Gilliton who Girish brought in. And this guy is one of these like 40-year professional keyboard veterans from LA. He's played his list of people that he's played with, which now of course includes Rob and Melissa, but it also includes like some of the biggest names that you can ever imagine, from Celine Dion to Whitney Houston to like all kinds of and Girish brought him in. He's been using him for, you know, many years. So, yeah, that's John playing a really cool. He's playing a Rhodes organ and he's also playing a piano. And that one, much like many of the songs on this new album, are a real departure from the standard, like, Rob and Melissa sound.
I felt
So,
that right away. I felt like, but I really felt like the keyboard took it into a new direction. But I thought it was really beautiful. It added something that touched my heart.
oh,
Great job, guys. Really.
great, man. Well, thank you, and we're really excited about the rest of the album too. We've got
So
a
you just released it as a single, and then you're gonna do
yeah,
the rest of them as singles, or
yeah.
when?
So we're doing like a couple singles, and then the next single is a Hanuman Chalisa, which I'm super excited about.
I
Hanuman
love that
Chalisa.
song.
You like the Hanuman Chalisa?
Isn't that a cool song? That's
I
a
love the
great song.
Hanuman. I love the Hanuman Chalisa. It's a really, really good song. We should talk about it in a minute here. Uh,
Probably will.
But that's coming out July 11th, and then August 1st, we've got the full album, and both the Chalisa and the Hari Om. Hari Om will be on there. So everybody check it out. Hari Om. Available. You're thinking the same thing.
Ariel,
You're thinking.
Ariel.
Yeah. Well, you're thinking about that picture I sent you, aren't you? Girish was having fun playing with the Photoshop AI, and he took one of our pictures and he gave me hair.
Not only hair, he gave you
Like
an afro.
he gave me a cool afro, man. I thought I looked great personally. I'd love to be sporting that
I
guy.
was like, dude, that's a good look for you,
I would look
man.
great. But everyone would know it was a wig, so it would be pretty sad. But and then
And
he
then,
he
yeah.
wrote he wrote Harry Om, which is so funny because how many how many times have like you heard like somebody who's just getting into bhakti or whatever be like sing Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari.
Let us dive into the sacred. To me, that is where the juice of life is. How's that? How do you feel about that? The
I feel
sacred.
I feel let's dive into the sacred in the form of the Hanuman Chalisa.
Yes, well, let's do our invocation mantras first.
Oh, right, of course. Got carried. I got a little ahead of myself there.
Akandamandalakaram Vyaptam yena characharam Tatpadam darshitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha.
Salutations to the Guru who revealed to me the supreme truth, which is unfragmented, infinite, timeless divinity, and which pervades the entire universe.
Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha.
Salutations to the Guru who opened my eyes, which had been blinded by the darkness of ignorance, by applying the divine ointment of self knowledge.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha.
Guru is the creator, sustainer, and the destroyer. Guru is directly the supreme spirit, both manifest reality and the absolute. My reverential salutations to the glorious Guru who resides in the hearts of all beings as the true self.
Hari Om. Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Bhagwan Ki.
Jai,
Shri Baba Neem Karoli Santa Maharaj Ki.
Jai.
The Hanuman Chalisa. Let us dive into
Let's.
a verse today.
What verse are we on?
We are on verse number 6,
Mhm.
which is, as we say every single week, this is a great verse. This
Is
is
it?
this is a Maha Mantra. There's a lot in this. Let me introduce it and then we can have some discussion about it. First, the English. You are Shiva's incarnation and Kesari's son. Your glory is renowned throughout, or is revered throughout the world. One more time. You are Shiva's incarnation and Kesari's son. Your glory is revered throughout the world. And the Avadi a few times. Shankara Suvana Kesari Nandana, Teja Pratapa Mahajagabandana. Again, Shankara Suvana Kesari Nandana, Teja Pratapa Mahajagabandana. Last one. Shankara Suvana Kesari Nandana, Teja Pratapa Mahajagabandana. You are Shiva's incarnation and Kesari's son. Your glory is revered throughout the world. Chopai. Number 6, RCD, lay it down for us, brother. We got, my man.
Oh my. Well, we've been I've been spending a lot of time with Shiva lately, and so we had a workshop last weekend, a Shiva workshop, and then our kirtan that night was all Shiva. And oh man, I just love chanting Om Namah Shivaya. How about you? So good, right?
It's butter on my lips.
It's butter. And so Hanuman is Shiva's incarnation, Shankara Suvana. So one of my favorite things about Ramayana and the Hanuman and Ram devotion is also the devotion of Shiva has for Ram, and then the devotion that Ram has for Shiva. It's this beautiful, like, reciprocal energy. We were talking just a couple weeks ago about this darshan, and the episode that just came out this week was about darshan, of seeing and being seen. And so much of our bhakti practice is this, willingness to see God, but also to sort of, not sort of, but to be seen by God as well. And you've got this beautiful thing happening with with Ram in his physical incarnation. But Ram is Vishnu, remember? But Ram himself, he worships Shiva. Like his Ishta Devata is Shiva. Well, then along comes Hanuman, who is Shiva's incarnation, and Hanuman worships Ram. Well, and if you read Ramcharitmanas, which is the Tulsidas version of Ramayana, um, much of the story is actually Shiva retelling the story to his wife Parvati, um, because of his devotion to Ram. So it's like, who's worshiping who? Is it Shiva worshiping Ram? Is Ram worshiping Shiva? Is Hanuman worshiping Ram? Well, the point is, I think that they're all worshiping each other. That there's this, and I think that's, reminds me of, like, that beautiful line. I think it's Paramananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, who says, like, if we knew how much God loved us, we just wouldn't be able to stand it. We would just, like, die of love. Is that
Joy. We dive from feeling too much joy.
we would just die from feeling too much joy. Um, and uh, because that's the, really interesting thing, that the more that, like, one cultivates love for God, then the more we come into a realization of how much God loves us. And somehow I love that, when I just let myself, because I can't even really mentally analyze it. But if you just kind of let yourself explore what that feels like, to have Ram worshiping Shiva and Shiva worshiping Ram and Hanuman worshiping Ram and Ram loving Hanuman. And it's such just a beautiful bhakti soup. I
Mhm,
guess,
mhm.
you know? So that's the first thing I always think about when I think of Hanuman and Shiva being related, you know, um, is this idea that, like, Shiva came down as Hanuman so he could worship Ram in the physical plane. Like, that's one of the reasons. Another reason is that he wanted to help Ram overcome Ravana. But on the more devotional bhakti aspect of things, Shiva wanted to be Hanuman so he could literally grasp Ram's feet, you know? And so that's what I get out of these first couple words. You got any thoughts on this?
I love that, brother. I love that. I just like, I think about Shiva, that Hanuman is Shiva, and Shiva is the Adi Yogi,
Mm.
that Shiva is the very first yogi, that Shiva is the Mahadev Deva, that he is the great God, that Shiva is that pure consciousness that's undifferentiated itself, that Shiva is divinity, and that Hanuman is a manifestation of that. And we can't forget that. Sometimes we think, oh, Hanuman is this this monkey, this servant, but and that's the role that he's taking on in this Leela, but in his bigger form, he is Mahadev. He is the light of the universe itself. And I think in recognizing that and feeling that deeply, we understand how powerful Hanuman is, that he can do anything, that he can do absolutely anything, because Lord Shiva certainly can do absolutely anything. There's something at play that I love as well too, that Hanuman is this bridge between Shiva and Vishnu, and essentially between the Shaivite view and the Vaishnava view. And these two views can be at odds with each other, because from the Vaishnava view, Vishnu is the Lord and the controller of the universe and is the highest. And we've had many of our friends that are in different sampradayas and lineages even say that to us. I think we've had this discussion that they believe that Krishna is the highest and that Shiva is Krishna's devotee, greatest devotee. But from the Shaivite view, it's Shiva is the highest and the supreme. So it just depends on where you're looking from. And I think from the ultimate non-dual perspective, Advaita Vedanta perspective, that they, whether it's Shiva or Vishnu, they are just faces of the supreme consciousness that's beyond all names and all forms. But I feel like it's very interesting that Hanuman is this bridge between the two, that he is Shiva, but he worships Ram. He's Ram's devotee. And I love that. And because my feeling is that neither of them are higher or better or more powerful, that they are both of equal, and it's of no use even trying to talk about who is more powerful.
Yeah, why is everyone so concerned with who's the most supreme of the supreme
Right.
entity?
Yeah, so
Seems to me like a silly question.
I agree. And I think Maharaji saying sub ek, that's what we follow, is that all one, all one. So these are some thoughts, but I love that Shiva, that Hanuman is Shiva. That feels really good in
It
my
does,
heart.
because Shiva, excuse me, you mentioned Shiva's the Adi yogi, and Hanuman is like he's like the greatest yogi that ever lived. I
And
mean,
he's Shiva, of
and
course.
he's Shiva, but I mean, because well, we know Hanuman's a great bhakta. We don't even need to talk about Hanuman's bhakti. But, Hanuman also was a great jnani. He knew all the Vedas and all the Shastras and all the scriptures and all the mantras and all that stuff. He sat with the yogis for many, many years. He's obviously, he's the son of the wind. So, like pranayama, I imagine, is no challenge for Hanuman. Hanuman has multiple asanas named after him. It's said that even some even say that he's the one who created the Surya Namaskar as dakshina for his guru Surya, as a way of repaying Surya for teaching him. And then, of course, he's a great karma yogi as well. I mean, the greatest karma yogi, if not one of the greatest. Everything he does, all of his actions are all completely selfless. Everything he does is to serve Ram and Sita and serve the righteous, good, the devotees of Ram, to serve people like you and me, even here on the path. Hanuman does everything from a karma yogi point of view. So there's really like not a yoga that Hanuman's not like the supreme master at. So that also is something that is totally fitting because Shiva is the Adi yogi.
Mm.
So of course his avatar would be a great yogi as well. So
I love that Shiva is a sadhu as well too. Like this impression that humans that have incarnated in India for thousands of years, and they have this impression in their mind because what they've been taught and the images they've seen is that God, that Mahadeva is God in the form of a sadhu yogi who renounces material attachments and is just solely, his eyes are half closed and he's turned inward towards his own true self, his own true nature. Shivoham, Shivoham. I am that pure consciousness. I am that Shiva nature. And this has inspired billions of souls that have incarnated through the ages. And, here we are taking birth in the West and coming to this much later in life. But could you imagine being born into life with this image and how that would shape your growth as a human being? I think it would be very different.
Hara Hara Mahadev.
Hara Hara Mahadev.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the stories about like how also like how Shiva's, his in-laws, how unhappy all of Shiva's in-laws were that their daughter wanted to marry a sadhu. Of course, famously, Sati, her father, Daksha, was so upset, that all chaos ensued, and Sati, burned herself alive in front of everybody. Um, but even Himavan, who's the mother or the father of Parvati, had to be convinced as well. He was not as challenging to convince um, as Daksha, but what do you think? I always wondered, like, what do you think the teaching is that that the in-laws don't want Shiva around, but that Shiva's like the Lord of everything?
Well, because he's seemingly not a family man.
Hmm.
He's a sadhu. And but then as I'm just thinking about this myself, maybe not in relation with this story, that I love how Lord Shiva is a sadhu, but he's also a family man.
Hmm.
He's got a wife and he's got children, but he's a sadhu at heart, which is really I think, a great teaching for all of us, that we go as deep as you can into the material life and world, but maintain that
Yeah,
inner
that's good.
sadhu life.
Always remember the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right. What about this next part? You want to talk about
Kesari Nandana. Kesari Nandana. Kesari is Hanuman's Vanara father.
Mm. The Vanaras again, for those who might not know.
Vanaras are this mystical race of like monkey humanoids that have great spiritual powers.
Mm.
And Anjani, who's Hanuman's mother, as we looked at a few lines ago, is a Vanara, and Kesari is Vanara father. And Kesari was the word Kesari, I believe it means lion. So he had this like the lion is the king of the jungle. So again, we look at Hanuman's lineage and his strength, that his father was like a lion.
Yeah, so Hanuman's pretty amazing. This guy, his father is like this amazing warrior too, by the way. Kesari was
Mm.
was a top dog in the Vanaras. He wasn't just, an average Vanara. Um, and he's an incarnation of Shiva, but don't forget he's also the son of the wind. So he's got a lot going for him. He's got a lot going for him. It's nice to know that we've got somebody like this at our backs, huh?
And I know you love this next part, because I know you love this word, Teja Pratapa Mahajagabandhana. His
I love
Lord is
this word so
revered.
much.
Yeah, Tejas.
Tejas, tejas. It's the vital essence of illumination. I mean, it is Shiva. You could use this word as a describing word for Shiva, especially when you think of Shiva as that, even beyond the murti, beyond the deva, the concept of Shiva is like pure consciousness. So it's like we have this, this this what does Ram Dass like to call it? This flesh suit or
Spacesuit.
what?
Spacesuit.
Space,
Spacesuit.
spacesuit? I thought he called it like a meat suit or something.
I think
Uh,
I've heard spacesuit, but may have.
okay. Anyway, well, we got this body, right? And without that consciousness, it's nothing. And the minute we see the consciousness passes through the body, and then the body is just a lump again. And what is this that like lights us up? What is this that makes us conscious and aware? Well, that's Shiva, and that also is described by this word tejas or teja here, and it's like it's this pratapa is also like a word that it kind of means fame, and
Mm,
it's just he's and that's maybe where it says like your glory is like the teja, and then maybe the word revered is this pratapa. So his glory is revered throughout the world because Hanuman just radiates that light, and Tulsidas mentions it multiple times here in the Hanuman Chalisa about Hanuman's radiance.
mm.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
just
always get this feeling of being thankful to Ram Dass and Krishna Das and Rameshwar Das and KK Saw in this part of this line, that really, to me, it's those four humans, KK, Ram Das, Krishna Das, Rameshwar Das, that is why, and I should say Bhagavan Das too, because we know Bhagavan Das led Ram Das to Maharaji, that those four really opened up the door to Hanuman for us. And I think that so much of the East, of course, knows who Hanuman is, whether it's Southeast Asia, Thailand, Bali, all these places, China. But your glory is revered throughout the world. Hanuman came west through, Maharaji's transmission, and specifically through, I believe, KK, RD, KD, and Rameshwar Das.
I feel like if KK hadn't begged Maharaji, you know, he just kept begging and kept begging. And he finally said, "Do what you want." And of course, what KK wanted was to invite them all. He just probably wanted his buddy Ramdas back.
And as you're saying this, I'm saying this is all Maharaji's Leela. Didn't
Of
he
course.
knew all this anyway? He
Yeah,
knew.
he knew it all.
I
Of
just
course.
heard this. You've probably heard this. Krishna Das talk about. He asked Siddhima, is it all grace, or is self effort required?
Mhm.
And Siddhima's response was, it's all grace, but you have to pretend like you don't know that it's all grace, meaning you have to do the work.
Do you know the parable where the the guru is riding across the desert with his disciple, and they're both on camels, and they're having this deep, spiritual conversation about how God will take care of everything. And they get to the, oasis, and there's like a hotel or restaurant or something, and they get off their camels and they go in there, and the next morning they come back out, and the guru's camel is tied up, and the disciple's camel is gone, and the disciple is like, I can't believe my camel is not here. And the guru says, well, did you tie it up? And he says, well, no, you told me that God will take care of everything. And he says, yes, God will take care of everything, but also tie up your camel. So
And
it's it's like that, I think, a little bit. I think of that story a lot um, because we have to tie up our camel, you know, and in that way that when City Ma said, you have to act like it's not, you know, you
you gotta
behave
just
as if you're in control, but you also have you balancing at the simultaneously you're balancing the understanding that it's all, the grace of Hanuman or Neem Karoli Baba or whoever you want to use, or it's just it that there's a greater thing happening, but you
yeah.
still do have to lock your car when you're in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah, it reminds me of my favorite quote. One of my favorite all-time quotes from a rabbi I heard many years ago is, pray as if everything depends on God,
Mm,
but act as if everything depends on you.
yeah.
Love that quote, man. It's
Mhm.
it's like, just keep offering it up, but you gotta do the work. You gotta grind it out. You gotta take one step in front of the next and keep moving forward in life. But
It's like that other story, the story where there's a big flood coming in, and they're evacuating the town, and this one guy is like determined not to, leave his house, and he prays to God, please God, just protect me and save me, and then and the water's getting higher and higher and higher, and he has to climb up to the roof, and now he's up on the roof and the water's still getting higher, and along comes a guy in a boat, and he says, hey, hop in, and he says, no, 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 God's gonna protect me, God's got me covered. And then the guy goes, okay, and he goes off, next thing you know, a helicopter comes along, and he's like, hey, climb up, and he says, no, 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 I'm God's got me covered, God's gonna protect me. And then pretty soon the water gets so, and now he's up to his neck, and he's standing on the top of the roof, and he says, God, why won't you help me? And God says, well, I sent you a boat, sent you a helicopter. What more do you want?
Isn't that great? We don't see the signals. We don't see the messages. We compartmentalize so much in our minds. But I think that non-dual perspective is that God, Spirit, Love, Ram, Jesus, Allah, Adonai is everywhere, is in everything and always. But we're so blind.
I think about this a lot too, and Shiva is also the Lord of transformation, right? And a lot of times we go to say our yoga mat, right? And we set our intention and we pray and we say, you know, God or Shiva or whoever, we say, I want to change. I want to transform. You know, help me do that. Well, I mean, transformation's hard. Transformation's not easy. Maybe we even say, I want to get over my attachment to money. And then the first thing that happens is, you know, I don't know, we lose all our money. And we go, God, I said I want to lose my attachment to money. And it's like the prayer's been answered, that, but what we really meant was, oh God, I want more money so I can feel less attached to the little bit that I have. Or maybe, and just thinking about, I guess maybe one way to say it is like we got to be careful what we pray for, you know. And two, if we really do want to make progress, like you were just saying a moment ago, we have to be willing to do the work. We have to be willing um, to deal with what comes our way when I was just listening to Radhanath Swami was talking a little clip that I saw this morning, and he was talking about like retuning ourselves so when the circumstances happen to us, we can see everything that happens to us as an opportunity, um, to grow, and we can see all the bad things in the world, as opportunities to be of service, as opposed to what we naturally like to do, speak for myself, is, complain about all the bad things that are happening in the world, but to use those as a way, as an opportunity. And I think a lot of times when we ask for transformation, we're given lots of opportunities, but a lot of those opportunities we don't necessarily we don't necessarily want them because they're not showing up in the way that we expected them to, or they're too hard, you know.
I really just felt something deep that you said, that Shiva is the Lord of transformation. And if we look at Hanuman as Shiva, as this role model, as this archetype, as this doorway to transform our lives, that it's selfless service, it's love for God, prema, it's, bhakti, devotion, it's jnana, right? It's the understanding of who we really are as a spiritual being, as a soul. And that, what can we say, that oh gosh, it's the word I'm looking for lack of better words, like that's being transmitted from Shiva through Hanuman as this energy to transform our lives in the direction of the good. And I think as we say that, it might be a good time to look at our LSD hit of the day, because I think there's something in this. Um,
Let's do it.
okay.
So our LSD hit of the day. By the way, everybody, just in case you're tuning in for the first time, we're not about to drop acid, or nor are we going to recommend that you drop acid. That's totally, you're going to have to figure that out yourself. Um, it's the OG LSD, which stands for love, service, and devotion. So we always like to take as many hits as we possibly can. You can't overdose on this LSD, but we always take at least one during our podcast. And what that means is we like to explore a quote or um, a wise thought from some great being. And in this case, we're going to look at a quote from Radhanath Swami. And he said, the purpose of spiritual life is to transform arrogance into humility, selfishness into selflessness, and hatred into love. One more time. The purpose of spiritual life is to transform arrogance into humility, selfishness into selflessness, and hatred into love. What do you think about that?
The first thing that's coming up for me is that human beings through time have been seeking something more, that getting out of just the redundancy of habitual thought and conditioning, and to live with hatred, to live with selfishness, to live, what was the first? Right?
Arrogance into humility.
To live in arrogance. This is painful existence. Mm-hmm. But at least now in Kali Yuga, I feel like we're conditioned to live in this separateness and divisiveness and pointing of fingers and me, it's all about me. And I think through the ages, even the ages of Kali Yuga, there's been people that have had enough spaciousness in their consciousness to reflect and see themselves and to see the suffering and the pain that living like this causes. So they've broken away from a quote unquote normal way of living and followed a path that has been laid out by gurus, saints, spiritual practitioners to help us transform the arrogance, the selfishness, the hatred. The transformation, I think I find so much hope is in the teaching that's been given. The transformation is possible, that we can transform and we can get out of the shackles of the chains that feel like they bind us to this really low vibrational and low way of living. And as we do these practices, spiritual practices, Radhanath Swami is saying, will transform us. The essence of doing these spiritual practices is that they open us up to more. And I think this is kind of going full circle to more light, as Shiva is that light, as Hanuman is an incarnation of that light. How about yourself, brother? Any
Hmm.
thoughts?
Yeah, well, I love that he's using this word transform, and we were just talking about Lord, the Lord of transformation, Shiva, and that that all of yoga, all of these practices are said to have come from Shiva. But Shiva, wants nothing more than for us to be able to transform and to transmute, these energies, these lower energies, and build them up. Sometimes when I look at a quote like this, like there's a part of me that really understands it, and there's just a part of me that it seems like such a long path, such a long road. Like we're we're so selfish, you know. We're so full of self-centeredness, you know, and um and we're so easy to like fly off the handle, feel anger. It's just thinking about something that just a couple of things happened in the last couple of days, and I almost immediately caught myself, and I was like, is that really how I want to be? One was like the doorbell rang and I was in the middle, I was meditating, and it's the classic, like, there's so many stories about like the meditating rishi who's like so advanced or whatever, and then he gets disturbed from his meditation, then he curses the person that disturbs him, with all this anger, uh and you're kind of like, wait a minute, I thought you were supposed to be the peaceful rishi, and there I am meditating, bing bong, like, and then it's just like some solicitor, trying to like clean the cobwebs around my house, something like that. And I don't know. I could have been a lot. I could have been a lot more loving, and I also could have, like like we hear this teaching all the time that like everybody that comes into your life is there to help you, is there to teach you, is there to help you learn a lesson. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I learned a lesson, but it was after the poor guy was gone. I mean, I wasn't like an out and out jerk, but I mean, I also wasn't like, you know, I wasn't going to buy his stuff. I knew that, but I just did that thing that people do a lot of times with like a solicitor at the door. And it's just like, get out of here, and that I felt immediately. I came back in and I was like, ah, okay, lesson learned. Could be a lot more nice. The guy's just trying to do what he thinks is the best thing he can do. He's trying to get through his life. He's got his own trip too. And he walked away thinking that guy's a jerk. I'm sure of it. And then, like, how, like, the how righteous we feel. And I don't mean righteous like in the classic sense of like full of goodness, I mean like how we feel like everything's supposed to be just like designed perfectly around us, like, and this was just somebody just came to a stop sign and I came to a stop sign and I was there first and they just blared through, and I just kind of like under my breath, what the hell do you think you're doing? And immediately I was just like, I was like, why? I don't know. So sometimes when I think of like selflessness, or I think of like humility, as much as I would love to be selfless and would love to be humble, and I try, and I think, and I do think that I'm making progress, and I can't stop thinking of Krishna Das, that slowly but inevitably, that he always likes to say, right? That the practices slowly but inevitably lead us to our goal. And and that gives me like some slack. I cut myself some slack, because hey, listen, I was a lot bigger jerk 20 years ago. So now I'm less of a jerk. So it's working, and I was way more arrogant Although you have to remember that the arrogance is part of self-centeredness, and so self-loathing and arrogance are closely intermingled, you know. Um, so most arrogant people you meet probably at their core, you know, but turning that arrogance, that self-centeredness into humility, you know, I don't know. Like I said, sometimes I read those and I'm just like, oh God, so far to go.
Mm.
You ever experience that, or you're already enlightened? I don't know.
Of course. I mean, I saw it with my son today. He said a few things and triggered me, and I like got so inflamed and felt, looking back on it now, felt like hatred and almost like violent within myself.
Mm.
And and I saw that happening, and it happened, and an hour later I apologized for it. And I think, well, maybe 20 years ago, or a previous incarnation or what, I wouldn't have apologized, and I would have still been holding on to it
Mhm.
because my ego wouldn't have let me apologize, or I was right there, and that righteousness, I had a right to be angry. I had a right to be inflamed about that because what he did, the ego of me, and
Yeah,
so bro, it's just a long journey, and we know it is, and we're not perfect. And I think that that just allowing ourselves to not be perfect is such a big part of it, and just to really be human, because the anger allowed me to find some humility and apologize. And that's anything that allows us to go there and open our hearts like that is on some level a gift.
mm.
That was like the Leela of that.
Yeah.
And in that, I felt this beautiful connection with him again.
I love this. This is turning that hatred into love,
Yeah.
right? Like that's really interesting because I was thinking of it like just turn being a hating person to being a loving person, right? But that you actually in that moment were able to transform that by saying, "Oh, I felt all that hatred, that anger, and I took it out on my son." But then you were able to go, "No, but I love my son, and I want to express that love." And then you apologized, and that was like that same energy had gone through like you know the bhakti pipeline or whatever you want to call it. It
Mm.
had gone from one end of it to the other, and by the time it ended it had been transmuted. I just thinking about one of the things that I have found myself doing, and I would have probably done it with this guy, but he'd already ridden off. He had one of those one of those little balancing wheel things, that people ride. Well, I don't know what they're called. Do you know what they're called?
I don't know, like a uniskateboard or
It's
something
like a
like that.
uniskateboard thing, yeah, but they can bolt. They're electric and they can really move. He had already hopped on that thing and was down the street by the time I like turned around, because one of the things that I've been trying to do is like if I'm like a jerk to somebody at a cash register or something like that and I catch myself in time, I try to say, it a lot of times it falls real flat because they've already decided I'm a jerk and they're not open to my apology. But I try to, sometimes I find myself going back into the store and saying, "Hey man, I'm sorry about that." And I'm doing that for myself. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on now it's on them, right? Are they going to accept my apology or not accept my apology? But that I like this idea of being able to like turn that hatred into love, but just in that specific moment. It doesn't mean you'll never feel hate again, but like when you notice it, you can turn it into love. if you notice yourself being selfish, you can make an effort to be selfless. And in that same way, if you, oh my God, I got so arrogant and I was all righteous and like, oh, I'm the one that's right. So that one really blows me away. And as a recovering know-it-all, this one really strikes me to the core because I see this all the time. I'm in recovery, I should say, and I relapse sometimes. Um, but I see this all the time. Like this, like it's okay for me to be angry because I'm right. You see that all the time, right? You see it in politics, you see it in the macro world, and you see it in the micro, you know, in the form of microaggressions all the time, or in arguments with people, it's like suddenly like sure I love you, you're my best friend, yada yada yada, but we're disagreeing about this thing about like what color the room that we were in an hour ago was, and now we're fighting because I'm right and you're wrong.
Mm.
And the most important thing now is to prove to you that I'm right and get your acknowledgement that I'm right. um, there's another Ram Dass quote, it's right on the tip of
Mm.
my tongue.
Would you rather be right or free?
Would you rather be right or free? Yeah, I'd rather be free.
I'd rather be free. I'd
I'd
rather
rather
be
be
free.
free.
You know, there's something about this that's just, and this is so much about what was it Chogyam Rinpoche said to Ram Dass, and this has been one of the major pivotal teachings in my own spirituality. He said something to the extent like, Ram Dass, you know, you're great at like being in the light, but try being human.
Hmm.
And for me, very naively, I thought being spiritual was bypassing all of the 1, 2, and 3 and just basically living up here.
Anahata up.
Anahata up. Absolutely. And basically cutting off
Yeah.
everything else. But as I'm, aging, whatever you want to call it, walking the path for longer, I'm feeling like, Ram Dass, try being human. Like, allow yourself to be allow yourself to, you know, the hatred, I'm not saying um, stoke that stuff, but it's a part of you. So, that's our human stuff. That's 1, 2, and 3 on some level.
Mm.
But then transform it.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're going to learn, through going into our human stuff. I really think, going into the, like, I don't know, home, 2, sex, 3, ambition, all like this is our human stuff. Like you got to go into that, like really go into that and experience it fully.
Mm.
And what I'm sensing is that there's so much spiritual growth that happens when we go into that stuff fully and begin to bring a spiritual consciousness. I don't want to say bring a spiritual consciousness into it, but like I guess I'm just trying to connect this quote to the arrogance, the hatred, the selfishness, that this is our humanness, and we got to go into that and just allow ourselves to be that on some level, but then flip it with the spiritual awareness that we have, transform it with the spiritual. I don't know if that's
Well,
making
that's what he's saying.
any
He's saying the
sense.
purpose of the spiritual life is to transform it, you know. So that's like like that's why, you know, that's why we do the practices. That's why we make the decisions that we make to live in satsang or community, to do this podcast, you know, that all of this aspects that make up our spiritual journey, the purpose, the reason is so we can do these things, so we are able to transform our arrogance and self-centeredness into humility and being humble, so we can stop being so selfish and maybe start living more selflessly, like Hanuman. I mean, Hanuman, he's got all of this, you know, nailed. Um, but that's the it's I love it. It's that it's not the purpose. It's not like he's even saying it's the goal of spiritual life, but it's the purpose. It's like why we do it. So we have the ability to, like, we learn through our practices, we learn how to do these things. I mean, like I said, uh, 20 years ago, I never would have dreamed about going back into a store and apologizing to the cashier, because I would have driven home the entire way saying, that stupid cashier, you know, blaming them. Like it had nothing to do with me, you know, it was them. And so I feel totally justified in what I said or did to them or whatever. So, but that, but all of this stuff that I've done has given me the skills to be able to do that, to be able to feel the anger, to feel the hatred that's inevitable, I suppose, in the human
Human,
condition.
because we're
Because we're
human.
humans, we're going to feel that stuff. But, you know, maybe like if I can transform that, you know, into more of a loving feeling. I mean, you can even see how the best, really the best karma yogis in the world, like Gandhi, for example, you know, that he was able to transform what was a lot of anger towards the British, but transform it into, you know, something that didn't end up as a war, but actually the opposite, actually achieved the goal. Um, and that anger, he was able to transform that into this, you know, way of nonviolence.
Mhm.
Um, but that anger and that hatred kind of come up, but we can maybe, the best activists in the world, I think, transform that into something, more useful.
Yeah, I think there's something really big as well too that I'm touching. And then I think we should finish it up. It's past midnight here, just
Yeah,
starting to feel that.
yeah.
But people in spiritual circles, they talk about forgiveness a lot as one of the most important things. And I think this is of the utmost importance, but I think this thing that we've been talking about for me in my life is apologizing to those people that I've hurt.
Hmm.
It's a really big clearing effect that's invaluable in spiritual growth. And I think, in the 12-step program, they talk about making amends, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But I feel like sometimes that forgiveness overshadows apologizing.
yeah,
And I think this is a really, for me, a big step to, when I know I've done wrong, to take that step forward and be courageous and say I'm sorry, and there's immense grace that flows through that,
It's true.
which is humility, right? Which I think is what
Yeah.
he's talking about, from arrogance to humility.
Yeah, and I think a big part of humility is recognizing when we have done something wrong.
Yeah.
The arrogant person doesn't do anything wrong. So if they make a mistake, they have to blame it on somebody else because, you know, um,
I can't say I'm sorry.
they can't say I'm sorry. It's not even in their lexicon. It's not in their dictionary, and I definitely relate to that. As I said, as a recovering know-it-all. Know-it-alls don't apologize either because, you know, why would I apologize? I did the right thing because I always know the right thing. And it's a real, it's, you know, um, it's a real mess.
Always right. I'm always
I'm always right. Yeah,
right.
it's a burden.
It's
It's a burden. I mean, I'm a recovering know-it-all. I mean, I'm still always right, but I'm okay with you not. What I don't need is you to know that, because that's the real where the disease really lies. Is like when other people disagree, then you feel this burning. Oh, and I have to convince you that I'm right. And until you agree with me that I'm right, we can't leave the dining room table or wherever it is that we are. And I'm telling you, man, I know I pushed a lot of people away in my life, back in the day with that need to be right thing. And so everybody that I pushed away in the past, I'm sorry. Okay. I apologize. I was wrong. Okay. None of them, I guarantee, are listening to this right now, though. But
You never know.
you
You
never
never
know. You
know.
never know. I think we.
Great session,
Oh
bro.
my
I love
gosh.
this, man. I'm feel like selfishly every session we have, like there are these openings that are taking place just through our conversations. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh man. So we finish up with our closing prayers.
Please.
All right. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
May all beings, including ourselves, be happy, be well, and be free from suffering. May all of our thoughts, may all of our words, and may all of our actions in some way contribute to that happiness, that well-being, and that freedom from suffering for all, including ourselves, including ourselves, including ourselves. Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Bhagwan ki.
Hey,
Sankatamochan Hanuman ki.
hey,
Shiva Neem Karoli Santa Maharaj ki.
hey. Thank you, everybody, once again for tuning in to the Love Everyone podcast. Love everyone, feed everyone, serve everyone, and remember God.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful life. Enjoy your life, and we will see you and hear and be together again in the heart. Thank you, everyone. Amen.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Hanuman.
Jai Ram.